Okay, so this is part 2 of our conversation with Thomas. And if you haven't watched part 1, don't even watch this episode. Just hold up, go back, watch part 1. You're going to definitely want to see that before you join us for part 2 next. Okay, so you had just finished talking about how you had a conversation with your dad, and he's kind of concerned that your mom has messed with your mind and not given a good story of him. But that wasn't the case at all. She was a godly woman and tried to kind of protect that situation. But after this conversation that you had with him, she decides to sit down with you and tell you from her side of the story what happened, correct?
Yeah. Because what happened was in the summer of 2019, that's when I was canvassing. He reaches out to me, and I'm about to leave for college towards the end of August.
Right. So before you go to college,
I'm back at home.
Right.
My mom, I don't know if it was the conversation that I had with my dad or what, but just somehow she felt moved to now start opening up and share. From her perspective, what happened.
You're 18. You need to know.
I'm 18, and I guess I need to know.
Yeah. So what'd she say?
She began to share a little bit of what she went through. In the genocide. A couple of things are sensitive. I probably shouldn't.
Oh yeah. No. Sure. Of course.
I probably shouldn't share. But
whatever you want to share is perfect.
But ultimately, that's when she started telling me about the abuse that she experienced from my father. There's one traumatic experience she mentioned. I was in the womb 7 months. My mom was pregnant. My dad just came home angry and just hit her. A woman who's pregnant 7 months.
Right.
She said she went to the hospital. She was in a coma, I think she said, for 2 days, if I'm not mistaken. That's what I heard from her. And just so many stories of what she experienced from him. But it's not like she was intentionally trying to paint a negative picture of him.
Sure, it's just this is what happened.
Like, this is what happened. I'm just trying to keep it real. And
why I left.
In fact, when I told you that my parents separated, it was more like my mom kind of ran away.
Right.
Basically, like she took me and my 2 sisters and I'm leaving. I can't continue experiencing this abuse. Yeah. And that's what led her to go to the refugee camp.
Wow.
And that's why she was adamant that she would never get married again.
Yeah. No. How could you blame her?
Right.
How long was she in the refugee? Were you guys in the refugee camp?
I was young. I'd probably say maybe 6-7 years.
Wow. So you lived in a refugee camp for 6 or 7 years.
Around there, I'd say.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah, it's a long time.
And do you have a lot of memories of that or no?
I have a couple memories here and there.
Your sister's probably
my sisters
more.
Yeah, of course. In the refugee camp, like I mentioned to you, why I knew 7 languages. It's because we had people from different countries who were running away from civil wars that had taken place. So you have people from Angola who spoke Portuguese. You want to speak to them, you got to learn their language. You had people from DRC, people from Burundi, Rwanda, and
Was there school for you in the refugee camp?
There was school. I was the slow type. I was a slow kid. I was a slow kid in school. My mom tells me she said I'd come back from school with my papers or my books all crumpled up. And she started praying. She said, "Lord, I don't know about this child if he's going to get educated or not." Yeah.
But I mean, how could you even focus? When you say a refugee camp, what does that look like? What does housing look like?
Oh, I mean, it's like, it's like huts basically. It's like huts, houses made out of mud and dry grass. Those were the type of homes.
What was food? Did your mom make meals? Was there a place they went to?
Farming.
Okay, so you had to find your own food.
All of us were farmers. And of course, there was a market. There was a market you can buy food. People were transporting stuff from the city, and people who did farm, they bring their stuff to the market to sell. And
how did she make money?
How did she make money?
How did you, if you didn't grow it, how did she acquire food?
How did she acquire food? Well,
The government give her
the government
stipend?
did also
Okay.
they did also provide food for the refugees. The staple food that you see in most African countries is something called fufu.
Mhm.
Basically, it's like cornmeal, and you make it in such a way where it kind of becomes hard. It's just water and cornmeal. It becomes
Mhm.
hard, and then you use whatever vegetables or whatever,
Mm.
and you eat with that. Yeah.
So you're there, and your mom and now stepfather are like, hey,
Mhm.
we want a better life, and so you move to the U.S. Let's get back to this with your father. You're 18 now. You now know, your mom gives you like, hey, this is my version of the story. Your dad talks to you a little bit. Are you now in like weekly periodic conversations with your father, or you talked to him at 15, you talked to him at 18? What happens next?
Yeah, I mean, there's still a little bit of hatred. There's
Mhm.
a little bit of hatred that was in my heart. So I didn't really talk to him. He
Okay.
had my number, but I didn't really talk to him. I got off social media. I deleted social media. I was in school, and God just convicted me to get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't have access to him. He didn't have access to me. He didn't
Right.
have my number. He just had my social media account, Facebook. And so we didn't talk for a little bit while I was in college. Somehow he got my phone number, and yeah, he would try to reach out here and there. And even in college, I can tell you, I still had a little bit of a hatred inside.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me just pause on this. Okay, so here's some of the statistics of that I found on father absence crisis in America. This is the National Fatherhood Initiative. We'll throw this up on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
According to this this group, 1 out of every 4 kids in America grow up without a biological step or even adoptive father at home.
Mhm.
So that
Mhm.
this is a big deal. This isn't just for someone who came from a different country. Obviously, this is a big issue. 4 times greater risk of poverty when dad's not in the home.
Mhm.
And just more likely to go to prison, more likely to commit a crime, 7 times more likely to become pregnant as a teen, twice as likely to drop out of school. So this is a big thing, but that wasn't your situation. These things that I'm seeing here. I mean, obviously you were dealing with some anger as you were working through this, but man, this wasn't your case. How wasn't this your situation? What happened to you? Were there people in your life? Was it your faith? Like, how did you not become a statistic?
Well, I'm not necessarily perfect because I have my flaws. You one of the statistics that you read there talked about teen pregnancy.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, one of my siblings
Mm-hmm.
was a mother,
Sure.
at a teenage age. And for me, I would say it's because of the prayers of my mother,
Mm-hmm.
the prayers of my mother, and the calling that God had for me since I was a child, and the fact that He placed that for me in childhood, and then
Right.
brought it back right. Like I finished junior year. I'm about to become a senior. That's the
Yeah.
time when you're deciding what to do in life. The fact that God calls me at that time again, that in a sense kind of prevented me from a lot of things. But at the same time, as a teenager, I mean, I wrestled with some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I was angry, because
Mhm.
I was asking myself with my dad. That's why I was angry with my dad. I was asking myself, why wasn't he present in my life to
Mhm.
show me how to be a man?
Right.
How to handle certain difficulties. Like I'm going through puberty. Nobody tells me, nobody
Right.
tells me about the puberty phase. How to
Right.
react, how to handle yourself, and so forth, so on. And yes, I had a stepdad, but just finding out recently that also, yeah, he had his father. He didn't necessarily have his father present in his life,
Mm-hmm.
so he couldn't really give me what he didn't get himself.
Sure.
So I may have a stepdad in my life. I felt like I had to kind of teach myself how to be
Mm-hmm.
a man, and I had to wrestle with some stuff on my own.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, And just, I think the call to ministry is what prevented me from becoming a statistic.
Yeah, that's amazing. You mentioned a couple of things. A dear friend of mine, Jeff Young, who took on that mission trip, did that help? Did youth or like that youth group, was that a positive thing? Or?
Yeah, it was. I mean, Jeff had been trying to reach out to me and get me to start a Bible club at my school. And I was like, all right, I gave in senior year after God had spoken to me. But before I was like, nah, I'm okay.
So he was relentless. I know Jeff. He's a pit bull.
He was relentless.
He kept asking.
Yeah. He kept going at it.
So you said school was hard for you when you were younger.
Yeah.
When did that switch? Like, I mean, or is it still a problem? Or like,
yeah, like, I mean, even,
did you have a good experience in school?
Even going through, coming here in the U.S. and transitioning, I was always a slow kid. And for the longest time, I kind of believed I was dumb.
Oh, okay. So you had that mindset.
Yeah, that was a fixed mindset. I'm like, man, I'm dumb.
Yeah.
Like, why am I not understanding, what's being taught in class and so forth and so on? But somehow God allowed me to make it through the academy years. But there was a bit of a switch, like when I was a senior, they're talking about college. When people talk about college, they make it so terrifying.
Oh.
So I was terrified. I'm like, am I even going to be able to handle
Right.
college if I go to college?
Right.
So when I went to college, it's just all of a sudden, like, I don't know what happened. There was just a switch. God somehow opened my mind, and I began to understand what was being taught in class.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that was it.
I attribute that to also the laws of health, which I was applying there at school.
What does that mean? What are laws of health?
When you talk about the laws of health, often what comes to mind is New Start.
Okay.
Nutrition, exercise, water.
So it's like an acronym.
Yeah.
Okay, so nutrition,
exercise,
water,
sunshine, temperance, air, rest, and trust in God.
Hey, nice job. You passed this. You do them all. You're like, bam. So those principles are principles that you have and you've been putting into your...
That I began putting in practice when I was in school.
Wow. Where did you hear that from? Like,
Heartland. I was at Heartland.
Okay, so this is in college.
This is in college.
So you went to Heartland College. Mm-hmm. And that's not in Michigan.
That's in Virginia.
Virginia, okay. Yeah. So you had a good experience there, and you feel like those were big pieces.
Those were big pieces. It began to unlock my mind to start understanding what was being taught in class.
Right.
Yeah, because for the longest time, I really did believe that I was not really smart.
Wow. And that changed.
Yeah, that changed.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, switching over to like I am child of the King. I am somebody.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you've talked to him just periodically, and now you've made a decision. How did you decide to go? Why were you going to Africa? Because you've not met him. Have you like your conversation? Were they video conferences or they're just
no, not
okay,
at all.
just phone or online? Okay, so
audio messages. Yeah.
So you've never seen the guy, right? And so now you make the decision you're going to go to Africa. Where do you go in Africa?
Zambia. That's where he is.
So why did you choose it? Was that the reason? You're like, hey, I'm going to go see my dad? Or
it was honestly, it wasn't even the main reason.
Oh, what was the main reason?
Even in college, I still had a little bit of a little bit of bitterness because my sister was always like, hey, dad is complaining that you're not talking to him. Whatever.
So he's talking to your sisters.
Yeah, my oldest sister, in fact, is actually, my oldest sister loves my father. She's probably the most loving person I've ever met in my life.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, very, very understanding. She talked to him, even though they had some bad experiences together.
Sure.
But yeah, and she was like, hey, you're not talking to him, whatever. And I had my reasons and excuses. Uh-huh. Yeah. So yeah, I reached out to one of my buddies. We were talking about, doing mission work. Okay,
so you want to go back.
It wasn't even going back to Zambia. We said we want to go somewhere in Africa.
Okay.
So we're thinking Ethiopia, we're thinking Cameroon, we're thinking Nigeria.
Plenty of opportunities.
Yeah, plenty of opportunities. They were there, and we were like, yeah, let's go somewhere there. And all of those just didn't seem to work out. And
Wow, so doors just getting closed.
Getting closed.
Wow.
My friend is from Zambia, though. So
okay, so he's like, hey, we can
go to Zambia. I was like, yeah, let's go. And it didn't come to mind. Like, I wasn't thinking, oh, my dad is there. Like, I know my dad is there, but I wasn't thinking about, seeing him or whatever. But then as we began to plan, that's when it...
Well, for those that don't know about Zambia, it's a fairly large country, right? I mean, like, do you? I didn't mean to put you on the spot. Like, how big is it? If you were to, I don't know if you know the numbers on population or size or.
Oh, I really don't.
But it's a large country.
It's a large country. In fact, even in Adventism alone, it's actually one of the fastest growing Adventist countries.
So you're a Seventh-day Adventist.
Seventh-day Adventist.
And there's more people. There's more Adventists in Zambia than the U.S., right?
I'm not certain. I'm not certain.
I'm pretty certain.
Really? I'm not certain. Maybe
we'll throw a stat up there. Alex is gonna. Yeah. I'm pretty sure. Like they're right in the mix.
Yeah, perhaps. I think I heard from somebody saying that Zambia and Brazil are up there together.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah. So I know they're baptizing a lot of people.
Oh yeah, a lot of people are learning about Jesus out there. So you're gonna go out there and you're gonna do what are you doing? Is it a medical trip?
We're doing a crusade, right? So we're doing 14 nights of preaching, evangelistic series.
In a row?
Yeah, in a row.
Dude,
in a row.
So you're just gonna bam, bam, bam.
Bam, bam, bam. In total, I think we preached like 17 sermons like in a row.
17 sermons, 14 days.
Yeah. Now as a young guy in ministry, you're like, yeah, let's do it. You're excited.
No problem.
I've never done this before.
What were the topics? Were they prophetic topics? Were they about life?
Or? The title of it was Final Events.
Okay.
We were talking about final events.
Okay, so how the world's gonna end, and
basically, we had some touch-ups on Adventist doctrines, some of the Adventist doctrines. Yeah.
So talking about Jesus is coming soon. This is what he said's gonna happen before he comes. All right, and so you're like, yeah, let's do it. So you're all set up. Still not processing your dad.
Still not. No, not at all. In fact, I was talking to my sister, talking about going to Zambia, and she was like, "You need to tell Dad you're going." And I was like, "No, I don't want to tell him." She was like, "You need to tell him you're going."
Oh, so you're processing.
Yeah. And eventually, I think this was probably a week before I left.
Okay.
I'm like, "Hey, I'm coming to Zambia. I want to invite you to come to the crusade."
Okay, so. Okay, another cliffhanger. Didn't mean it. Well, we're gonna have to wrap it up for this part. Part 3 is you're gonna want. You have to. You're already in 2. Come on, you gotta see part 3. We're gonna wrap it up. This is Man Talk. No challenge except to watch the next episode. Remember to love God, love each other, and duct tape fixes everything. See you next episode.